Hi everyone and welcome to A2I Dyslexia live show. It's amazing to have you back. To have you back on the show. Sorry, I just had a bit of a noise in the background there. Welcome everybody and welcome to A2I Dyslexia live show, all things dyslexia. How are you all? I hope you are all feeling very, very good this wonderful evening. Today's live show will be absolutely phenomenal. I use this word every week, don't I? And I bet people are probably saying, no, this is the word you use all the time, but it will be phenomenal. So first of all, I'd like to introduce myself to those that have joined us the first time. My name is Elizabeth Techi. I'm the founder of A2I Dyslexia, CIC. We're based in London, in Wandsworth, to be precise. And we support the dyslexic community with employability, startups like entrepreneurships, and also education. I almost forgot one of them. Typical, having dyslexia, very easy to forget things. So this is who we are and this is what we do. And today's live show, it's titled Dyslexia, What Not to Do. I wish, and I always say this every week, I wish there was some kind of live show like this when I was younger, or many years ago, so I could have tapped into it and get some information about my hidden disability, which I was in denial for many, many, many years, until my back was against the wall and I needed help. And I thought, you know what, it's about time I spoke about this condition and get the help I need. So I was one of the very fortunate ones that went to university and got assessed for dyslexia and dyspraxia. As a result, I'm sitting in this chair today doing this live show. Now, my story may resonate with many people. The kind of phone calls sometimes we get is people who say, well, if I don't really want to go the university route, what then happens to me? And that's a very big question, because community-wise, there may not be so much support for anyone who's got dyslexia and not in education, or maybe not currently working. And this is why I think it's really brilliant that we bring on a show like this and we talk about all things dyslexia. We talk about where people can go for help and where they can go for support. And, you know, A2I Dyslexia runs workshops. Some of them are free, some of them, our workshops are free, I must say, but some of our products and services are paid for. And I do understand, you know, a time like this in pandemic, it's very difficult for a lot of people, including myself, to be honest. I'm not exempt from all the unprecedented things we're going through at the moment. So without further ado, I would like to introduce an amazing lady who I met, I think about 2 years ago. And I was really surprised when we actually started conversing and she actually mentioned she's dyslexic. And all of a sudden, I was like, wow, she is such an incredible young lady. And she's done so much, you know, through her dyslexic journey. I normally say to people, dyslexia, it's a hidden condition. So unless someone mentions, you don't know. But you know what, some stuff is so privileged to meet another dyslexic, particularly if, you know, they look like you or represent the things you do. And I was really happy when I met Kiren. And this evening, I'd like to introduce you to Kiren Kumar. She will tell you a little bit about her journey, why she's actually particularly decided to come on this show, because she's a phenomenal young lady and she's here to make a change in our community. So, Kiren, welcome to A2I Dyslexia live show.
Thank you for calling me young, by the
way. How are you and how are you feeling this evening?
I'm good, thank you. Blessed to be here.
Wonderful, wonderful. I know we had a little bit of a technical hitch coming in, but hey, it's one of those things, isn't it? At least we were on time. Oh dear. Just you know, I know as a dyslexic, sometimes that would be like, oh my God, I really want this done properly, because I panic, because you kind of want things to be done properly. And but hey, we're here now, and you know, the show's live, and I'd like to give you the platform to introduce yourself. You know, just tell us a little bit about you. And why you think it's so important to talk about dyslexia and what not to do. But first of all, let our viewers know who you are, and we'll start from there.
Yes. So, hi everybody. My name is Kiren, as you got introduced. I'm a prime example of what not to do if you're a dyslexic. So we're going to probably go into that a little bit more later. So, primarily, when I introduce myself, I always say I am the daughter of an immigrant, and that is very important because education was key in our house growing up. I studied in both private and public schools. I did 4 years at college. I then 5 years at uni just to get my degree. And then since then, I've been working in recruitment and at the moment manage recruitment teams.
Wonderful. Now, I've got a little bit of a biography on you. So I'm just going to read that out. So Kiren has over 15 years experience in recruitment and has supported hundreds of people into work in both the public and private sector. She's passionate about supporting people who do not feel heard, and she regularly gives talks about her own experience to inspire and motivate women and young people. Kiren is dyslexic herself and is based in South London, but her story is like, it will really literally have your jaw dropped, because the challenges she's gone through to have got to where she is. And I think a lot of people just need to hear that it is possible and you can do it. Today's show, particularly, the title is Dyslexia, What Not to Do. Now, I'm going to go to my first question, Kiren. And my first question is, when were you diagnosed with dyslexia and how did you react when you heard the word dyslexia, or your parents? Yeah.
Not dyslexia per se, but when I was at primary school, I just moved from a state school to a private school. Now, my dad was forced to get me into this school because they just wouldn't take permission from anybody. And it was a really small school, obviously. Education was key, first generation born. He wanted to make sure that you got where you needed to get and work harder than everybody else. So we were the headmistress basically called us in one day. And she didn't say dyslexia. What she said was, I think your child's got a bit of a learning difficulty, and maybe this school isn't suited to her. At which point, my dad nearly jumped over the desk, told the teacher no, she can do it. She's just going to study harder. Like, you can't tell me she's not right for here. So I think that stayed with me quite a lot in terms of, oh my God, I've got to work harder, My dad used to send me home with dictionaries and make me read a dictionary every night, try and get my English up, and my spelling up, and my reading up. And he'd make me read books on books. But it was such a struggle where I'd read something, he'd say to me, right, what did you read? And I couldn't tell him what I read because I just wasn't retaining information. Excuse me. That was probably the first time it was kind of alert to, shall we say. And then it wasn't until my final year of university. My lecturer was away. I was doing my dissertation and I went to see another tutor. And within 10 minutes of her reading my work, she said to me, "You're dyslexic." Now, my initial reaction was no, of course I'm not. Why would you say that? I haven't checked my work properly. I always get told that. I try, but I just can't pick up where I'm going wrong. And she had a really, her approach was very different in terms of how she said it. She was like, maybe just get checked. There's a lot of things you can do. And I was lucky because one of my best friends, sisters at the time, also had dyslexia. So I kind of watched the way she worked and the support she got. So I think I was a little bit more open to it, but not completely. And to me, it was this stigma of, you're not trying hard, you didn't work hard enough. I should have worked harder and I wouldn't have these problems. So I think that was kind of a running theme. So for me, I ended up getting the test, but it was kind of get the test and forget about it. Now I've just got to do more of an effort. I need to be more careful. I need to read my work and all these other things, because I didn't want the stigma and I didn't want this label and I didn't want this embarrassment. I just didn't have that relief that some people say they get when they're diagnosed, because like, oh, I know what's wrong with me. Now I can figure out how to use it. So yeah, it wasn't until maybe 5 years ago that I really started embracing and owning the fact that I was dyslexic and shouting it from the rooftop.
Yeah, and I think how liberating it feels when you are able to talk about it. God, it's such a weight lifted from your shoulders, if that's how you put it. And it just makes you feel like, it was all right. Why have I been beating myself all these years, trying to hide away from something that there's nothing you can do? It's part of your makeup. And you can't, there's not much you can do, apart from seek help. And I hear this story all the time. A lot of people would ring and they would say, look, I feel ashamed. I don't want to talk to anyone about this condition. I'm a big person, grown woman or man, and I don't know my left and right. I can't spell. Can you hear me?
Work, because I don't think people understand the weight of it. It's like, and with the shame comes judgment, and you're like, people are going to judge me. What, you go into a working environment, and it's like, oh my God, like somebody's telling me my spelling isn't right, or they couldn't understand the email, or they've asked me to read something in a document, and then they ask me about it, and I'm like, oh my God, I don't know. I need to go to somebody and like that idea off of you because I don't know what I read half the time. So yeah, and then you kind of think you can do a job, but you really start believing that you can't. So yeah, it's definitely a really, really big weight.
How did it make you feel when you found out about this? Like, what was your self-esteem like? By the time, I know that feeling 100%. Confidence.
Myself, I mean, by the time I got diagnosed, it was, don't get me wrong, the thing that got me through was I was stubborn and I was driven. When I got to school, I told one of my careers advisors at the time, I'm going to go to university. And she looked at me with this kind of head tilt, oh, maybe you choose something else, do another route, that's not right, you maybe get a job. And I just thought, no. Since I was 4 years old, I knew I was going to university. I didn't know what I was going to do because I realised the things I wanted to do, maybe I couldn't do, so I was going to have to manage my own expectations a little bit. So I literally stood up, thanked her, told her I'll come back and see you when I get my degree.
Wow.
So my confidence really, really drove me. But confidence-wise, inside, I can put on I think we all do it, especially because we're quite good verbal communicators.
We are.
So we forget how to manipulate that. That's fine. So I think we kind of persuade everybody else, but inside it is every time you do something, like I said, anytime you send an email, anytime you write something, anytime you read something, anytime you've got to look things up. I'm terrible with directions. I didn't even realise till recently that directions was part of my dyslexia. I'll walk around going, okay, so I need to go to the McDonald's. Tell me, like, I need to go to a landmark. Don't tell me go left, go right, go here. Because I'm lost in London. I mean, nobody wants to be lost in London.
Yeah.
So, yeah. It's hard.
Wow. What sort of impact did it have on your mental health? I mean, how was it for you? I mean, I know that I fell into deep depression and I was like, what? What's that? I had to try to go and this is like, I was diagnosed in 2002 or 2001, something like that. And I had to go and find out what the condition was in the first place. I thought, what is that? And then once I found out what it is, and I thought, but I articulate really well. I mean, I can't see anything physically wrong with me because I thought there had to be something wrong with you by someone could look at you and think, oh, you got dyslexia. That was my perception at that time. So when I just kept beating myself and I thought, well, how comes no one ever told me about this? And how comes there's no help? Well, at the time I got the help I needed, but in the 80s and the 90s, I was like, well, why did no one notice it? And I was very angry. And I was also really angry the fact that I was like 10 years behind, and it was really devastating.
I think anger and mental health are very, very interlinked and combined. Mm-hmm. People think it's just sadness that creates kind of mental health and everything else. But it can stem from anger as well. And I totally understand that kind of, because it is just, it's relentless. Mm. It's relentless in yourself. Half the time people aren't even noticing the things you're noticing. And I was born in the 80s. So I was like 80s, 90s, I was at school. So it was very different in comparison to what it is now. Mm. Like I said, I'm a proud daughter of an immigrant. Mm-hmm. So I was told from young, you've got to work harder than everybody else.
Absolutely.
You're not going to get away with what everybody else gets away with. Mm-hmm. So as soon as the dyslexic aspect came in, and my teachers were continuously getting me to write lines or put me in a corner because I wasn't getting good marks on spelling tests, or I wasn't noticing where I was missing grammar and punctuation and things like that. It eats up at you, and you're just kind of like, but for me, it was definitely turned into kind of an anger thing where I didn't even want to write. Like people would say, write something on the board. And I would use every excuse in the book. I would skip lessons if I knew I had to read something, anything to avoid situations that I knew I wasn't going to be able to get out of. So, yeah, it definitely takes a toll.
Now, one thing I just wanted to ask, imagine you hadn't gone to uni. What do you think might have happened?
I know.
I know.
And it's funny, because like I said, I call her my sister. My sister that had dyslexia at the time, she said to me from the beginning, the moment she met me, she was like, "You've got dyslexia." And I was like, "No, I haven't. No, I haven't. No, I haven't." Like, literally, on the defense, like, why would you say that? Why is she saying that about me? Just because you've got it doesn't mean I've got it. I'm just stupid. I just forget to check things. I just forget to do this and forget to do that, because that's what's drummed into you all the way through. So yeah, I probably would have just carried on like that. I probably would have avoided certain jobs in certain situations, because I think you do that. If you know a certain job. So last year I went for a promotion. Now, for me, there was a few people like in my colleagues were like, go for it, go for it. And my boss was really encouraging in terms of go for it. I want everybody on my team to go for it. In my head, even at that point where I'm kind of acknowledging and I promoted the fact that I'm dyslexic, I'm going, oh my God, there's going to be more paperwork involved. There's going to be more reports involved. And I'm thinking of all the things that I'm going to struggle with.
Yeah.
And it got right to the last minute of the submission day, and I was like, I can't do it. I don't want to do it. I'm happy where I am. I'm comfortable doing what I'm doing. And I wasn't going to put it in. And then another colleague of mine who was applying for another position called me and said, just put it in. Do it now while I'm on the phone to you. And basically, kind of ended up doing it. But I wouldn't have even gone for that. So.
Yeah. And I guess sometimes when we work in a place where our managers are really supportive, that really does help as well. It's just, yeah, it really does help. It just lifts.
All my emails, I've never had, well, not all my emails, but if it's something important, I fire it over and he checks all my written work for me and my presentation, which any other job, they weren't going to do that. They were going to be like, you can't do your job, like, move on. So,
they might not put it bluntly, but they'll find another way. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, this is amazing. So just to our viewers who are watching this at the moment, welcome to A2I Dyslexia live show. If it doesn't matter where you've joined us from, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. Today's topic is dyslexia, what not to do. Now I'm just going to move on to my next question, which hang on a minute, just get this paper straight, right? So can you tell us more about the title of this show, Dyslexia, What Not to Do? What do you wish you had done differently? As like being diagnosed with dyslexia, what do you wish you would have done differently?
Yeah. Obviously, I wish I would have acknowledged it from the jump, like straight away. Okay, this is it. Because then you have time. I mean, I'll be steps ahead in my journey right now. Journey is such a cliche word, isn't it? But it's true. I probably would have been steps ahead. I found myself, and this is what I think people get. You can go around people that have dyslexia, and my experience was they knew everything they needed to do. So they'd be like, yeah, this is a symptom, and this is a symptom, and this is how we work with it, and this is how we manage it, and this is the software we have. I'm like, I'm still learning what I need.
Absolutely.
I don't even know what I need half the time. I'm kind of learning it because I've got in such a routine of managing it my own way. So I thought it was important to just be like, hey, some of us are here that really don't have a clue. We're not experts on this. We're all learning. We're all trying to find ways that work for us as individuals, not just as combined dyslexic people. So yeah, I mean, I wish I would have acknowledged it earlier. Maybe been around people that can guide you a little bit better and support you a little bit better and give you those ideas of like what's available, what you can do, and all the techniques that are there probably.
I think for me, when I used to work in a corporate world, and if they said, well, what can we do to support you, Elizabeth? I'm like, I don't even understand my report I've got. I don't even understand the report. The report's can be quite in depth. And you say, I don't know. And it's like the standard, but you've got dyslexia, you don't know what help you need. Much I don't. And then I give them the report, and even that's complicating for them, because I just find the whole process can be very, very confusing, and to be honest with you, I still don't understand my report. I know what I need to be able to get on, but it's a bit sort of long worded.
We read things in a certain way and we see things in a certain way. So if it's not presented in a certain way, it's hard. But then we also understand that actually we can't expect everybody else in an organisation to change the way they work. You kind of have to find something that works for us that's not going to inconvenience them too much. Otherwise, we just walk around and tell everybody how we want to sit and done, but and what works for us. But it doesn't always happen in reports. And reports can be enough. I'm okay with numbers. I love a report with numbers. That's fine. The moment you start putting words and things on there, or it's a document about something. So, for example, I think I had at least, I've got probably 3 or 4 documents, reports, those type of things that are in my inbox at the moment that I know I've got to read. And I'm like, don't put it off. You've got a deadline. You know, find out the deadline so we know how we've got to work this. Because I know it's going to take me so long to go through it and then go through it again. And then I'm going to have to go through it again to make sure I understood it, even though I'm taking notes, because then I've got to understand my notes that go with the document. So it's a whole challenge and process.
I mean, one thing
easy.
One thing I can say is I have a very chaotic sort of life every day, you know, every day, no matter what it is, it's very, very chaotic. When you said about, oh, I've got to do it, it's not even procrastination, is it? It's like, God, where do I start? It's like, where do I start? Where do I begin? Where do I end? You know? And sometimes I'm sort of start right in the middle, and then I don't finish off what I'm supposed to be doing. Then I move on to something else, and that never gets sorted out. And then you find that nothing's done, and then you get quite frustrated with yourself. And then it's like, well,
if I do things as I go along, so I always kind of brand myself as a doer. I'm not a planner. I'm not an organizer. I'm a doer. But that also comes from my dyslexia, I think. I mean, it's part of my nature. I like to just go, go, go. But I think that dyslexia does have a hand in that. So I'm going to forget something that you asked me to do, even if it's in my diary. So if you come to me and ask me to do something, or I know something's needed, I'd rather do it there and then. And people are like, why are you doing it right now? You thought you were doing something else. I am doing something else. I need to do this now before it's gone.
Because before you forget. Yes.
It's a bit frantic and a bit chaotic and a bit, you know, all over the place. But it's not. It's just a way of ensuring everything you need to do is getting checked off. And you're not just left with no results at the end.
Exactly. And even though, you know, some of us do, I don't know, 9 to 5 or 10 to 6 or whatever the time might be, you always leave the office thinking, there's so much more I could have done. You know, and you feel guilty for not finishing the work because you spend, I know for me, for example, it could take me hours to even read an email to understand it, you know. And this is the message that, you know, obviously having these live shows, that one of the messages or what we're trying to get at is people to resonate and think, actually, what you're going through is exactly what I go through. And we're saying to people, go for help. Because if you don't, you'll end up being burnt out. I mean, I know we've been talking about burnt out and all that during lockdowns, but it's triple harder for anyone with a specific learning, i.e. dyslexia.
I think it's like AA. The first thing is being able to say, yes, I'm dyslexic. Because then people around you, they may not understand it. They may not understand the challenges. They may not always understand where you come from. I don't understand it. How am I expecting them to? But they kind of go, okay, she's dyslexic. And it explains a little bit why I might have done something a certain way or responded a certain way. I very rarely, if someone on my team or another team asks a question or emails me, I will very rarely respond in an email. I'll pick up the phone.
Call me.
Call you. Why don't we call each other? Yeah. And just do it that way. Just to make sure I make my point clear.
Of course. And that's a really good strategy, because I think for myself, for example, sometimes what I've read in an email is not how I've understood it. So I end up doing the opposite to it, you know. And like you said, some of the strategies, why don't you pick up a phone and ring me? Explain it, then I can go back and understand what I need to do, you know. Yeah. And I know that, you know, for some people it's long-winded, but hey, that I'm dyslexic and it's the only way I learn. Yeah.
You think it's really good. And I never used to like doing that because I felt like I was inconveniencing someone. And again, they were going to be like, oh, she doesn't know what she's doing. But actually, by me taking those 5 minutes to come to you and say, what did you need? It saves everybody time. So I've gone away, I've done past 2 hours, I've sent it to you, you've got it, you checked it. And so we've already wasted half a day on something that I could have just come and asked and confirmed and clarified. And then we're both happy. And I'm less feeling terrible if I've got it wrong the first time.
Exactly. Exactly. And that can really shatter your confidence, can't it? I mean, I get that. I get that working for A2I. You know, you know, you think you run your own organization, but obviously if I get something wrong, I thought, God, I can really beat myself forever. And then I have to say, look, take a step back. It is a condition, it is real, and it is what it is. You know, just correct your mistakes and get someone to help you along that way. I've got so many software and so many gadgets, but sometimes like, I have to understand how the gadget works first before I can move on to using it. Right. Oh, that's really amazing.
It's like you're giving me software and I don't know what I'm doing with it.
Exactly.
It's even more stressful.
Exactly. Yeah.
Before we came on,
that was a bit of a challenge, yeah.
But you were like, can you just type in dyslexia and denial in the title? And I was like, Google how to spell dyslexia, Google how to spell denial. Oh, Google's not working. So even trying to get that title sometimes, or trying to do a word, I don't know who called it dyslexia, because I still can't spell dyslexic or dyslexia or anything. So it's a bit crazy.
Well, the other day, I think I was on the phone with, I was trying to fill something in, and someone said, oh, Elizabeth, can you spell Elizabeth for me? Because Elizabeth is spelled in so many different ways, isn't it? Could you believe it, Kieran? I couldn't spell my own name. I couldn't spell it. It's that moment, you know, that sometimes we go through this dyslexia moment where you cannot even spell the word it. And you sit there thinking, how the hell do you spell that? You know, but here we are. So today's topic, if you've just joined us, is about dyslexia, what not to do. And we will be covering what not to do in our last question. At the moment, Kieran's speaking to us about obviously her struggles and some of the things that help her to overcome dyslexia. Someone once said to me, oh, I had dyslexia, or I used to have dyslexia. And I went, oh, I wonder what pill you took then to overcome your, because you don't, it never leaves you, does it, Kieran? We don't sort of get better. Well, I say get better. We don't, it doesn't disappear, does it? It doesn't. You find ways to manage it. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. Right. Okay. So now, what sort of words of encouragement would you give to any job seekers, people who are looking for work right now and who have dyslexia and specific learning difficulties? What sort of advice would you give to people? I mean, millions and millions of people are unemployed, and if dyslexia affects 1 in 10, I can't work the maths. Part of my dyslexia or dyscalculia I'm terrible with numbers, so I can't work that figure out. But you can imagine the amount of people that might be unemployed right now and think, you know, one, I've lost my job. I mean, I know that a lot of dyslexics I've met in the past have probably been in their jobs for years, and it wouldn't change because, you know, if they ended up going somewhere else, it means they have to retrain all over again. And if anybody's watching right now and they've probably lost their job, what advice would you give them? What words of encouragement would you give them?
You know what? I think especially now, in the time we're in, where you have 200 odd people applying for one position, and it's competitive enough as it is. And we know that, you know, we're not good with application forms and things. I mean, if I had to have done the application form to get a foot in the door where I am now, I would have never applied. I wouldn't be here because I wouldn't want to do the application form. So I think when it comes to applying for jobs, the key has to be that we have to remember that actually, as dyslexic people, we've got some superpowers. Well, this is how I explain it to the kids, right? So we have superpowers, and these superpowers come in the form of, we're very creative. We find these kind of ways and loopholes and different things of doing things to avoid things. So we have to use the same technique. So, for example, a few of the things that I use when I've looked for jobs are things like, if I send over a CV, because I'm a recruiter, I kind of know that I have to find the right person to speak to first of all. So once I've tracked them down, which I turn into a bit of a game, I'll send my CV over, and then I'm going to pick up the phone and call you, because I know my CV does not represent me on paper.
Absolutely.
What I need to do is make sure somebody speaks to me, because then I can sell myself to you. So if you can get hold of hiring managers, the recruitment consultants, anybody, form that bond. Pick up the phone, sell yourself, use the skills that you have. You know? So that's probably like one of my biggest tips. Another thing that I took this from somewhere else about 20 years ago. About 20 years ago, there was an article in a newspaper about somebody who had sent a tea bag with their CV. And obviously it got noticed because there's a pile of CVs on the table and the hiring manager's looking for something unique, and all of a sudden he's a tea bag, and he's like, what's this? This is back in the day when people actually used to send CVs. it's just an example of a creative way of doing things and something that's going to make you stand out, because the key is to stand out. This is what we're all striving to do when we're looking for work and interviewing. Also, don't just rely, like most people go online, they look for jobs online, or they talk to an agency. Let's learn that. Use your creative skills. Like I said, it's a superpower. Make a list of all the companies you want to work for in your area, and then contact them on LinkedIn or call them, or do something that gets you noticed. So it shows, you don't even have to know they're hiring. Send them a quick message saying, hey, this is what I do, if you have anything available. So I think just maybe using what you have. So that verbal communication, you have to make sure that's put across. Being dyslexic does not mean, by any means of the word, you don't stand just as good a chance as anybody else. You just have to fight that little bit harder and do it in a way that other people aren't doing.
I love the story of the tea bag. So what was the significant meaning of the tea bag? I think it's amazing. So that it can get noticed.
Yeah, they put a tea bag attached to their CV with a little post-it on top of it saying, please enjoy a cup of tea while you read my CV.
Wow.
Now, that's going to stand out. I mean, people used to use colour paper and stuff to stand out. But that really got noticed. And like I said, it ended up in all the papers, all the recruiters were talking about it at the time. So yes, sometimes it's just making sure someone sees you. Because even if they see something on your CV that may not be worded correctly, the fact that you've done something different has got you noticed. If somebody sent me a tea bag, I just be like, I have to read this, and I've got to speak to this person, even if it's just to see what they're about. And then they've got me on the phone, because I've called them. And then it's down to them to sell themselves.
Wow. That is so creative, isn't it? I've never thought about that, many years ago. But I guess now we have to email CVs, and Lord, it's not the same, is it?
They're creative. We find ways of work. That's one thing we're very good at. We try and find ways of working around things. So I'm sure everybody out there will find or think of 20 different ways. Obviously, you've got to keep it professional, but I'm sure there's ways they can think of.
Yeah. And I normally say to people, look, it doesn't matter what industry you want to go into, you can still get to where you want to be. Only you've got to be, like you said, we've got to work 10 times harder. And, if you're dyslexic and you're from the BAME community, or you're back, or different ethnic background, sometimes it's even harder,
Yeah.
It's a lot harder to even get that across, because I don't even have the words for it right now. It can be very, very difficult, because one, you're sort of dealing with, do I really want people to know? Should they know? And then you're sort of looking at yourself and thinking, well, actually, I've got, you've got a barrier of being a woman, being black, and all those things that go with it as well. And that can be very, very challenging. And again, using a creative thing, like you said, could be something that would really catch someone's eye.
I think the key is, majority of the time, and this is just my personal experience, we don't not get jobs because we're not good enough. We don't stop because our confidence is low. And then that comes out in one way or another. So for anybody, dyslexic or not, because so many people have different reasons why their confidence lacks. And then you've got these overconfident people. Yeah. So working without, again, it sounds very cliche, and I hate cliches, but working on yourself, you only have to believe in yourself for 10 minutes. An hour when you get to an interview max. As long as you can believe in yourself for that hour, however you have to do it. So I do things like, if I have interviews and things, I have this thing called change your state that I learned off the motivation people about 10 years ago and carried on doing. And I changed my state by, I could be sat feeling very unconfident, very not this, doubting myself. And I will find music that I will switch on and dance around 2 to 5 minutes. Everyone's supposed to sing, and I tell my young people that where they do the superhero pose before you go in, because it really changes your stance and your mentality. And then you've just got to keep that state of mind for a period of time. And as long as you do that, you've done what you needed to do. And then you work on the rest after. One step at a time.
That's amazing. That's a really good tip. That's really, really amazing. I'm going to take that away with me, actually. Yeah. Fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. So, would you be able to give us like maybe 2 or 3 tips on what not to do as a dyslexic? What are the things we shouldn't do?
Don't pretend you haven't got it, first of all, first and foremost. I mean, people put themselves in a state where they try and do things the way other people do them. So it's like everybody in my workplace does things this way, so I need to do it this way. No, you don't. You can have the same result or a better result doing things the other way. I was reading a report or a research thing recently that was saying about terminology in the workplace and how you have certain terminology. Now, I know I can't spell hospitality. I can't even spell recruiter, and I do it for a living.
Sounds like me.
It's with a U and an I in it. I can't do it. It doesn't matter. I've had it for years. 15 years I've been doing the job. So I find better words. I can spell business. I can spell development. So I use business development. I can spell restaurant, just about, or I can get at least spell check will pick up on that one. So don't try and do things where everybody else does. Find your ways, find your own terminology. And yes, there's going to be certain terminology that is standard in your industry. So there's going to be certain things you may have to just keep track of. But everything else, do it your way. It's probably a key one on there.
Wonderful. That's so amazing. That is really fantastic. And like going back to when you said when you're spelling words, again, I'm similar to you. I probably can't, to spell restaurant, I'll be here forever. Because it's how I hear it, is how I spell it. So again, I use alternative words. I think, well, I can't spell that. What other word could I use instead? And I totally agree with you. And it's the same in a sentence. It makes sense. It may not be the word I was looking for.
Like we do these things naturally as dyslexic people. We swap out words. But for some reason, when we get into certain working environments, we feel like we have to use the same terminology as everybody else because that's what's standard across the business. But it's not always the case. So yeah, don't try and put yourself into that box that everybody else is in. Be comfortable and confident enough to do it your way.
Absolutely. And I normally say, look, it's all right to be different. I love being so different in the way I do things. At the end of the day, it's the same result, but I might have gone about it the long way around. But I do get to the same result. And that's what...
It's your way. That doesn't make it wrong. Just because you do things your way, right? It could be the right way and everybody else could be doing it different.
Exactly. I mean, I do sometimes get asked when I used to work in the corporate world, why are you doing it that way? And I think I normally would say, wait for the results. You get the exact result as everybody else. Only mine's a little bit different. And that's what makes us great. I mean, I normally say to people, a lot of dyslexics as entrepreneurs, as self-starters, amazing. Because they will always find a way and somehow very creatively solve that problem, And the purpose of this live show today, it's work in your own way and try and be as creative as you want to be, and please don't compare. I think one thing with some people I've met, they've got dyslexia and specific learning, would try to compare and say, well, look, stay yeah. We are so different in the way we work, and it's okay to be like that. Wonderful, thank you very much. So if anybody's joined us today, this evening show is about dyslexia, what not to do. We've got the lovely Kiren Kumar, who has been speaking to us for almost 40 minutes now. We've got 5 minutes to go, and it's just been such a phenomenal live show this evening. If I haven't responded to anybody's sort of messages as yet or said anything, because I can't see it on my screen, so sorry guys, but we will go back and have a look at some of the questions that were coming through, and of course, we'll respond accordingly, how it should be. So, Kieran, what a pleasure to have spoken. I'm getting all my words twisted up now. To have spoken to you, to have seen you, to have come on the live show. It's such a pleasure, and the work you do, so many people will benefit from the services that you provide and the support you give people, and the fact that you speak about dyslexia confidently. and not feel any way about it. So I've got a message here from Sarah Jones. It's a thank you. I'm 40 and just getting tested. Wow. She's just getting tested now. Sarah, what pleasure to have you on the show. I'm glad that you are going for the test. I always say to people, it's never too late. It is never too late. As long as you need, you know that something wasn't right or you felt different from everyone else and you're going for the test, it's never too late to go for the test. And I know that after being diagnosed, oh my goodness, I was like, I can't even explain it to you, Kieran. It was one of the best moments of my life. Although I was in denial at first. I think the first 6, 7 months or 8 months, I was like, no, these people don't know what they're talking about. And I still tried to do it my way and I failed drastically. But going for the help has been one of the...
It goes from holding that shame yourself to if somebody judges you, then it becomes shame on you for judging me. And it kind of switches the dynamic a little bit.
Yeah. So I've got another message come through for Alison Rendell, who said, thank you, Kieran. Your story is so inspiring. It is very inspiring, and I think a lot of dyslexics I've met in the past is that I'm never going to give up till I succeed, and some of the words I heard at school, I'm sure you heard similar. I know that my career advisor took one look at me and thought, right, okay, I don't know where this one's going to end up. But this is back in the 80s. And I'm pretty sure that perception is still there, to be honest with you. I don't think we've completely got rid of, if someone doesn't understand dyslexia, what would they say to you? Now, I know words are very powerful. So when I heard those things, it stuck in my head. And I used to think, well, what good am I to anyone? Until I find a niche, and I find a passion, and I find so many people that needed this help. And it's taken me so many years to get here. But I always say it's never too late, So well done, Sarah, for going for your assessment. I don't know if there's anything else you'd want to say, Kieran.
Mm-hmm. Well, we could chat all day, couldn't we?
We could. I know, when you meet another dyslexic, you just find that you've got so much in common, isn't it? And it's so great to have this platform so people can share their story. So that was from Alison. I'm not too sure if there are any more messages. Perhaps there is, but at the moment I can only see a couple on my screen. But we will go back and read those messages and respond to them accordingly. So, Kieran, thank you so much for joining HY Dyslexia. People that were watching us, please share, please comment, please subscribe. Tell your friends about this live show, friends, colleagues, your managers, your directors, your principals at universities and colleges. Get them all to tune in and speak to us about, what sort of support they can give people with dyslexia and specific learning difficulty. Is there one last thing you'd like to leave with any of our listeners at the moment, or viewers?
One last thing. Embrace it, be confident.
Absolutely. Yeah. So if I say dyslexic in denial, you were in denial at one point, weren't you? So anyone's watching who is in denial, what would you say to them?
If we embrace it, like, you have to clutch your both hands and realize there is support. There's people like you, there's organizations like you that do amazing work across the borough, and I'm sure there's other places, all around the country. So yeah, just take it, embrace it, learn how to work with it and find what works for you.
Mm-hmm. Would you actually, if someone said, oh, how do I disclose? What would you say? How do I disclose my dyslexia without being judged, without being looked at, without anyone sort of looking at me differently? What would you say?
I'm extreme. I'm always extreme to things. So I went through that whole 35 years of not even wanting to let the word leave my mouth. And then when I finally did decide, okay, I'm going to take this and run with it, I was just very blunt. I think I just walk into offices and in the middle of speaking to people, I'll be like, I'm about to send you an email. By the way, I'm dyslexic, so if it doesn't make sense, just let me know. So yeah, I take that very in your face, you haven't got time to react approach, I suppose. And I've never had a negative response. That's one thing I can say.
Mm-hmm. 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 And it's been the same for me. I was so much in denial. Oh, I wouldn't talk to anyone about it. And I blocked it out of my head. I thought, no, that's not me. That is not me. No. And then one day, I remember trying to kind of, I normally say to people, I had to come out and accept it, because this was really eating me away. It was just really like making my life hell. So I remember posting something on Facebook, and it was about maybe having like a support group at the time. Kieran, it was one of the worst days of my life, but I did it. And from that day on, I actually said to myself, I really don't care what anybody thinks. I can't live like this anymore.
I think, like most things, the fear of doing something is the biggest part of it. When you actually do it, you're like, oh, what, like, where did that fear come from? Fear is irrational. Fear takes over your mindset. So I think it's fear more than anything else that like kind of holds people back. But once you do it, it's as if nobody's even batting an eyelid. Like you're like waiting for it.
Yeah.
Don't tell people, and then you've just got all this random stuff going on, and you're sending terrible emails. Then they're looking at you like, okay, so this out, there's a problem. So, yeah.
And I guess it must be even harder now, because everything is written now. It's not like many years ago where you can walk to someone and speak to them. We're all working from home. So we're
very lucky to have technology. We have things like, Zoom and Teams and Skype where we can just call somebody quickly.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Kieran. It's such a pleasure having you on our live show. Thank you for the work you do in the community. Thank you for you being you. Thank you for being so inspirational to many people. Continue with the amazing work that you're doing, and you're changing lives, that I know for sure. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Wonderful. So, viewers, thank you so much for joining us this evening. Next week, we'll be back speaking to the lovely Zoe. Title of the live show, to be honest, I can't remember, but you will see it on all our social media platforms. I'm not too sure what it is, but I think Dyslexia My Language, and that's going to be another phenomenal live show. See you next week, same time, same place. Bye for now.